The National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception welcomes you to participate in a reflection based upon the Liturgy of the Word for the second Sunday of Lent. The Lenten season is designed by the Church to help, first of all, the catechumens who are preparing to receive the sacraments of initiation at Easter time. It also is designed to be helpful to the already initiated, most of us perhaps who are listening today, because we will be called upon to renew at Easter the promises we made at baptism. On each Sunday of Lent, the Church uses a combination of events, symbols, figures taken from the Old Testament in order to show how Jesus relives and fulfills what came before him, and also to see ourselves as part of this transition from the Old Testament to the New. How does it enrich us? How does it make our lives better than they were before? Now, last Sunday, you may recall that the image used by the Church was the desert or experience, wilderness experience of Moses and the Jewish people as they traveled from Egypt to the Promised Land. That was a wonderful time in which they experienced God's presence to them, but also a time of testing their trust in God, their willingness to receive as they went along what would be needed. And we know that often they panicked because they were in unfamiliar places, living a lifestyle different from what they had known in the past. And they often failed miserably. Now, Jesus, by contrast, will also be tested throughout his life by the same situations and scenarios. But instead of falling back upon his own natural human resources, will depend upon the divine resources within him. Now today, having looked at the valley of distress, we look up to the mountain of illumination and encouragement. And we remember that Moses not only experienced the difficulties of resistance in the valley with the people, but was often called up to the top of the mountain where he was illuminated by God's revelation. For example, when he was given the law that would govern the people's relationship with Yahweh. And there too, he was encouraged whenever, having been cast down by the failure of the people to listen to him and to agree with him, he needed to be reassured that his mission was worthwhile. It was on that mountain, too, that the prophet Elijah received the shot in the arm that he needed after being expelled from his country by Queen Jezebel, who was unhappy with his success in the debate with the priests of Baal. She was out for his life, and he had to flee, thinking that this was the end of his mission. But on the mountain, he was reassured that there was still something to be done. Now, Jesus connects with all of this in a couple of ways. First of all, on this second Sunday of Lent, we remember the mountaintop experience that he shared with his disciples and with the two figures from the Old Testament, Moses and Elijah. Whether this was actually on a physical mountain or an ecstatic experience shared by the disciples, we do not know. But the important thing is that this transfiguration of Jesus, witnessed by the figures of the Old Testament and by those of the New Testament to come, it gives us this impression, once again, of Jesus fulfilling what came before. He will do more than Moses or Elijah. He will reveal more. He will accomplish more through a new covenant and a new law, not written on stone, but by the Spirit in his heart and in our heart. More important than this passing experience would be the mountaintop of the resurrection, an event that would be lasting for Jesus. He would rise forever. And we too are called to rise with him if we are willing to die with him in the waters of baptism, letting go of our own will and rising with him to a new identity as the children of the same Father, living the relationship that Jesus has with his Father, doing this not just as individuals, of course, but also as a community of believers. In the light of all this, those who are preparing for the sacraments of initiation recognize that they too have been tested in the past. They're able to gauge to which extent they have succeeded or failed. And they also recognize in the process that they have accepted to engage in the rite of Christian initiation of adults, a way for them to also get in touch with where they are at in their journey from Egypt to the Promised Land. And if perhaps they are overwhelmed by a sense of unworthiness or feel that they cannot measure up, remembering what happened to Moses and Elijah, they too can calm down and allow this second Sunday of Lent to do for them what it did for the disciples who went up on that mountain with Jesus, who had heard Jesus say that what was coming would to some extent be dreadful, his suffering, his dying, and in the end there would be victory. My friends, you and I who already have been baptized are part of this too. Life is a constant journey and a constant testing of our faith, of our hope, of our love. Sometimes we do better, sometimes we fail. And we too then need these mountaintop moments when we can admit what needs to be done, accept the encouragement that we need and the strength that is necessary to continue the journey to the heavenly Jerusalem. We hope that you will benefit from today's segment of our Lenten Reflection Series and that you will join us next Sunday for that presentation.